going?
I don't know. I'm just
Do you guys have a theme song?
digging it.
No.
No.
Oh, yeah.
No,
See,
we
here I am
just-
thinking I was missing out on something.
We just kind of wing it every week. We find some music on YouTube.
I get some liturgical chant.
I should have somebody write a theme song, like the Swillers. We should have like the Swillers write a theme song.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. You ought to do that.
So this week we have Father Ben joining us.
Hi, Father Ben.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
How
You
you
just
doing?
call me Ben. Don't worry about the father thing.
Okay, Ben.
We might need to do confessions or
chaplain.
something.
Yeah.
How much time do we have? Because
Yeah,
I've seen his posts on Facebook.
This is
so.
like reality redemption. We might need some
Yeah, we
official
might need some
spiritual redemption
we
now.
might cross the line for a few jokes.
I'm going to guess that's why they crucified Jesus. He crossed the line for a few good jokes too. So
I know you speak about the ultimate cancel culture. Jesus was the first one that was canceled.
yeah, I mean he came
it.
back from it, but he still
And
was.
well, and quite literally too, because they won't even speak of Jesus or show Jesus the way that Jesus would have actually looked.
Right.
I mean, it's a whole different Jesus.
Right. Like we said,
that they've invented.
those paint swatches. He would have been way over on the darker side than the the
They
vanilla
canceled
side.
the original. Now they have fan fiction going on.
Yeah.
So
So again, still drinking the Bud Light because of that whole thing that just will not go away.
They okay. I had some more stuff to say about that too, because I was thinking about it more and more, and it's like the folks who get mad about that, like the transgender advertising of Bud Light or whatnot, advertising to the transgender community or the LGBTQ, the whole community,
to be fair, they made a commemorative can for her exclusively,
right,
that she promoted on her
and it's
Instagram.
not even for sale.
So somebody actually,
even
for
for
them to be
sale.
upset about it, somebody was following her on Instagram
Right.
or whatever. And so what are they upset about? I mean, they clearly are fans, right? I mean, or were they just trying to...
Well, I had like this theory that, those who protest too much
Right.
usually are the ones who are guilty of certain things.
Well, and my my point with the Bud Light and other products, these companies want to sell products. They want to sell them to everyone. They want everyone to use their
Right.
products because they make more money, and that is the point of business. How does some of these folks not get that? It's like, yeah, Bud Light wants to sell their products to everyone. They want to sell their products to Black people. They want to sell their products to Mexican people. They want to sell their products to women. They want to sell their products to transgender folks because they want to make money.
Right, and that's why you've seen advertising over the last few years. It's had more mixed race couples in it.
Right.
You've had more Asian Americans.
And that irritates these folks
LGBTQ is
around here.
represented in
yeah.
commercials.
Like that irritates, apparently it makes white folks, it's like, I guess, a constant reminder to them that they're going to be replaced or something, and that's what pisses them off. But it's like, these companies want to make money. Of course they're going to have other folks in their commercials.
Well, what is interesting about it, though, is 10 years ago, we started seeing more and more LGBTQ people portrayed in commercials and movies and stuff, or video games, and nobody batted an eye. It's not until now, and I was going to see if we could talk about this later on when we start talking about Waco, is that the cult, what defines a cult is this absolutism. Right? So the leader has absolute authority, the leader is the absolute word of God and all this, and you absolutely give everything to this cult. That's what's going on, is that, no, we're the absolute. We are the people of God. So you have to do what we say. And that's what we're seeing throughout the country right now, is this cult mentality. Even though they're really a minority of the population of the people who live here, there's this cult mentality of, no, we are the absolute and you must kowtow to us. What makes really no sense about it is they're the ones going out to buy the beer just to go on Facebook and TikTok or whatever and shoot it.
And shoot.
Who the hell cares? They don't care. You've already given them your money.
Yeah.
I mean, how
I
stupid
know,
do you
you've
have
already
to be?
paid them.
Yeah.
They've already made their
They've
money
made their
off
money.
of
I don't
you.
care what you do with it.
I saw somebody with a steamroller, and there was cases upon cases. There was probably like 20, 30 yards of beer that they ran over. And like, that was a lot of money that you paid in.
ton of
Somebody
money for
should have put
nothing.
in the comments, how much did all that beer cost you before you steamrolled over it?
Yeah.
What do you think
To
the
bring
profit
that up.
margin for Anheuser-Busch was for all that? I mean, they don't care. They're still making their money.
Yeah,
off of it.
and again, these people, I don't know why they're latching onto this one so hard. Usually they have like the mind of a goldfish, and they forget about stuff within a week or two that they've latched onto this one.
Yeah.
But it's probably because it makes them feel that uncomfortable.
Because Bud Light's such an American, it's almost an icon in America.
Yeah, but according to that thinking, though, having the Clydesdales and all that in all their commercials, what, they try to turn us into bestiality next?
I know, right? Right?
I mean, that must have crossed their mind at some point that, man, that goat really looks sexy. Because, I mean, they're always thinking about it.
It has to.
Everything's gonna force me to have sex with that goat.
They
Dude, if you
sexualize
want it that
everything.
bad, I
Well,
mean,
maybe that's...
They're always sexualizing everything too. They really are pissed about the M&M's chick, the green one, not wearing the go-go high heel boots anymore. She's wearing like sensible shoes now. They're pissed.
I'm concerned about their fetishes because some of that's just not healthy stuff.
No.
That's really not. To fetishize a candy is not healthy, man.
Yeah.
Right?
You need to talk to somebody about that.
Well, you think of that that's where Alex Jones got, they turned the frogs gay is because Budweiser had that famous commercial with the three frogs. Budweiser.
Right.
Maybe that's where he got it. Alex Jones made that connection years ago.
He's a prophet, man. He's something else.
Yeah.
Or he's going to make it now. Watch, he comes out with something.
Before we get on to the next thing, because we've talked about Bud Light quite a bit the last couple episodes, I think I have the solution to the gun problem in the United States is you have this Dylan girl film a commercial using a rainbow-colored AR-15.
And then they won't
won't go,
use AR-15s.
Yeah, AR-15s have gone woke. We got to protest that. And then they'll destroy their own guns.
Make guns woke. There you go.
It's
man.
a perfect solution.
Right?
That's ingenious.
Yeah. That's like you should talk to somebody like that. Somebody in their advertising. Somebody in advertising.
We should just reach
We
out.
got to get a
reach
commercial
out to Dylan. And I don't know Dylan's, how they feel about gun control or whatever. But speak gun control, why, and we'll state this because we always have to do the disclaimer. We're not against guns, even though we're huge gun control advocates, meaning keep the guns out of the loonies' hands.
Right.
In Kansas City, a 16-year-old was shot because he went up to a door,
And rang a doorbell.
to pick up his brother.
His twin brothers.
Right. And at first the guy got off on the stand the ground law, but he shot through a window at this kid, and while the kid was lying on the ground, shot him again. He has since been charged on it.
Right.
Now, caveat is it was an old white man shooting a 16-year-old black kid.
And after he shot him the second time before the kid was able to get up and run away, he said to the kid, "You don't come back here." Like he was saying stuff like that. Like that just goes to show like he clearly had a fear. He was afraid just because this kid was black and ringing his doorbell. Like,
Yeah. And let's see, so and then the very next day, this girl was killed in New York, who their friends turning around
in her
driveway.
Right. And then there were the cheerleaders in Texas.
There was the cheerleaders in Texas who walked up to the wrong car. I've done that. I've walked up to the wrong car and go to this isn't my car.
There's so many cars that like are like
are all
the same
similar
cars.
now.
Yeah, if your friend has the same car as somebody else, and they're parked close to each other, she did, and this one gets even weirder because she walks up to the car, opens it on accident, and then says, "Oh, I'm sorry," then goes back and gets in the right car, and this guy still goes and like hunts him down. She's
I mean, I've done that 1,000 times where you're like, why isn't the button working?
Yeah.
And so you still try the door anyways. You open it up. There's a lady sitting there like, oh, crap. Sorry.
you're like, oops,
Sorry.
I'm
My
in the
car's
wrong
right over
car.
there. Sorry.
Yeah.
But, I think from my perspective, from what I see, is you have these media outlets that equate, they talk about masculinity all the time. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene, is always talking about masculinity. You have to have a huge truck or else you're not masculine. You can't
She's
have
very masculine.
electric. She is. She would know, I guess.
She's more masculine than some
Electric
dudes.
vehicles, take away your masculinity somehow. Like, my junk doesn't have anything to do with my car, But then there's also the same respect, they talk about violence equals masculinity. There's this idea that violence equals masculinity, that being peaceful is woke, and therefore it's
right. And you'll see it. The same guys that drive big trucks, they're wearing the tight T-shirts. It's got to have the American flag here, rifle coffee, or whatever slogan on the front of it.
And they got the 3 guns to go into Taco Bell because apparently the terrorists are going to strike Taco Bell and Kingman. But I think you have this social media and this other media is that you have to be afraid. The wokers are coming, right? Be afraid. And so people that listen to this stuff are just terrified that their world is going to end. And it is. Worlds always end.
Yeah, it's progressing. The world is becoming more progressive, more open-minded, accepting of other people. Yeah,
it will continue to do so.
Yeah,
whether these people stand up against it or not is going to happen.
Yeah, whether they like it or not.
It's going to happen. You stand in front of a rolling boulder, you're just going to get squished. Just move out of the way. But violence equals masculinity, and then they spend so much money on these guns. These things are not inexpensive. They are expensive. Mm-hmm. You spend so much money on something that you never use. After a while, you just itch to use it. And you look for an excuse to use it. And what other use is there for a gun?
Yeah, I mean, then you had one. These all occurred within a 4-day span. There was a 6-year-old girl whose basketball rolled into the neighbor's yard, and there was some kind of altercation, and then the little girl got shot.
And the dad.
Luckily, she just got grazed.
And the dad got shot.
He shot a little kid.
Yeah. There's no reason for it. I get.
Her dad got shot in the back, though, I think.
Yeah, in the back.
Yeah.
But
that's what happened, too. People are just nuts. I mean, they're nuts lately.
It's also like maybe a lack of empathy, or I don't know.
I think it's like fear that they're just so afraid of constantly looking over their shoulder. And then we're hearing about shootings every day too, because there's mass shootings all the time because we live in America. So they're just on edge, and then they think they can just take the law into their own hands. They've got that mentality too.
Well, they really are itching for the next Civil War.
Right.
They really are.
Yeah.
That's their dream, is to have that. That's why they always say that, is to fight against tyranny. It's like, good luck.
So I think for some of them, in their minds, it's already started. So they figure they can just do whatever they want. I mean, it's in the way they drive too. They'll drive up to where they have a stop sign, right? They don't give a shit. If they don't want to stop, they're not going to do it. They're like, I'm just going to go. I mean, that's how they do. That's how they do things now.
But but just to flash back, and this gets back into the Bud Light, what's wrong with the woke? Now, I sort of hate the term woke myself, because it has just kind of term liberal, because it just has a bad, just the way it's defined on one side. It just makes it feel bad. But being a more open-minded, I think open-minded is a better term for it than woke. On it, more inclusive is a better term.
I personally think that when the right uses the term woke to try to make fun of anything, whatever they don't like, they're basically, I think it's another thing that they're aiming at the Black community. They're trying to do, oh, you're woke, woke. You know, they're
Well,
trying
it came
to,
out with CRT,
Right.
this terror of CRT that they can't even define.
Well,
right, and
it's
they're saying that because they can't, because some of them still won't run around and say the N-word. You know,
Well,
they're sitting there.
But isn't that where the term woke came from? Was the black community? I believe that's where it started.
Right.
Yeah, be
so
aware.
that's
Be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah, be
I think
aware.
right,
where
and
it
that's what I'm
started.
saying. Though these extreme right wingers have like perverted it, and then they've turned it into we're gonna do that. All this woke. We got to get rid of this wokeness. You know.
So I mean,
We know what
along
they're
that
saying.
with what I had written on Facebook, what you had said, you need to say this. So I wrote this thing about people that carry all these guns, and you know, my observation is the people who carry multiple guns to Taco Bell or Safeway or whatever are people that on their own feel powerless, like they have no control over their life. We talked about the world is changing around them, and they have no control over that.
It's true.
And they don't have power over the lives of those around them. We can see that with the Bud Light crap, that people want to have power over that poor girl's life. Let her alone. Let her have her own thing. They think that carrying a gun gives them the idea of control or authority. Authority that they think is possible, but let's face it, it really isn't. I have no control over you two right now. I'm perfectly comfortable with that. I don't want that kind of responsibility. You guys are messed up. There is fear, of course, not all with all gun owners. I used to own guns. But there's an idea that the world is changing without them, and that they want to assert some sort of control over their own lives and the lives of others and how it affects them. You know, but we look at gun ownership, and you can tell it's just a disease here in America. I was listening to a podcast today. I forget who it was. One of the guys that does stuff with like the Late Show with Colbert and stuff. That he was in Sweden or Switzerland. Switzerland per capita has more guns than the United States does.
Right.
Switzerland has no gun crime. Absolutely none. And they look at America and they say, you guys have some issues. You guys have problems.
Doesn't Switzerland have a free mental health system, though?
They have a free mental health system. If you're born in Switzerland, you are automatically in the military, so you get military training with firearms. Their firearms have strict laws that you have to obey. And people don't have this addiction to this idea of freedom. Although in Switzerland, they're technically more free than we are in America. But they don't sit and they don't live this. That's the drug, is this idea of freedom that we just don't really have. And people are just so addicted to the word freedom, but they don't understand that word freedom is taking away the freedom of children to live.
Right.
To be alive. Taking away freedom of children to go to school and feel safe. You know?
Right. And like with me, it's not the gun. It's more like how it's such a fetish to some people.
It's the thing of worship.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a gun. I didn't worship the thing. I had it in a cabinet, and every now and again I'd take it to the firing range. That was it.
Which is fine. I used to have concealed carry.
Yeah.
And I purposely had concealed carry because I didn't want to seem like I'm just swinging dick or looking for trouble with anybody, you know? And rarely would I ever even carry it because I was always like, in what situation, even if, say, I was in a bank that was getting held up, would me pulling out the gun make the situation better?
Yeah, there is none. There is none. We were at, I think at Taco Bell. My daughter and I have a 15-year-old daughter. This is years ago when she was much littler, and we're sitting there eating Taco Bell. She won't go to Taco Bell with me now. She's at that age. And this family walks in, and the dad has 2 guns on either side. His son has a gun on his hip. His daughter has a gun on his hip. I'm going to guess the wife probably had a couple in her purse. And she leans over. She goes, "Dad." I said, "What?" She goes, "Why do they have all those guns?" I said, "Because he adopted those children, and he and his wife have never done it." And she's like, "Oh, okay." She knew what I meant. I was like, because they're afraid. They are so terrified that bad things are going to happen at Taco Bell. Of course, the only thing that's going to happen at Taco Bell is chronic diarrhea. That's it. But yet, there's so much fear that somebody is going to hurt you in the shadows. And this actually segues well into the Waco stuff. I mean, all this stuff really does segue into this Waco conversation.
See, like my anxiety couldn't handle. I mean, like, I have my own issues, but I couldn't imagine being that anxious to think that a gun would be pulled on me at any moment.
Right. Or that I would be in any state of mind to be able to defend myself with a firearm if somebody was shooting at me. I would cry like a baby. I would squeal like a small child and hide under a counter. I mean, I would be the first one. I'd pull some old lady out of there so I could hide in there. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Now, I'm that much of a coward, I guess, that I know that I'm not going to be any good with a gun in a situation where it calls for a gun.
No, because
And most of the people I see around here that are all, packing, strapped up, they always look like, I'm like, yeah, I guess you should wear that because you ain't kicking no one's ass. I mean, they all look like total weenies, total wimps. I mean, to me, like, no offense, but
right.
I guess that's why they feel like they need to strap up, because it's like they get into any situation,
Right.
they're not going to be able to
Yeah, they don't look
kick
like
any
they
ass.
don't look like a threat because all you have to do is run 20 yards away, and they'll be out of breath before they get to
Right, right.
I would be out of breath. It's a sense of identity. That's all it is. They take that as their sense of identity. They don't have a sense of worth or value without that gun.
Yeah, and it seems to me like some of them are just trying to look cool,
Well,
like
that's it
whatever
too.
they think, whatever they believe cool is, like
Right.
like
I mean, because the Black Rifle coffee shirt with the American flag, because you have to remind yourself that you're a patriot.
I know.
And you have to have the big flag on your truck to remind yourself that you're a patriot.
They love symbols.
But you're gonna
they
hate,
love symbolism.
But you hate the government.
Right. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
How does that work? Like, I'm in love with the flag, yet I hate the government.
Right, and that flag represents the government.
But again, it's
Right.
symbolism, and symbolism is easy. Like, anybody can wear a cross. It doesn't make you a Christian.
Right.
But people love the symbol, so they wear the cross, and people are going to think I'm a Christian.
They're going to think I'm a good person.
But as you're bitching out the server at Cracker Barrel because, my God, your iced tea wasn't quite right. I mean, it's easy to wear symbols. It's easy to fly flags. It's easy to, any kind of symbol. It's easy to wear. But what it really means and what it really represents is hard. And so symbols are easy, and that's why everybody runs to a symbol. And that gun is a symbol of whatever that person associates that gun with. And so that symbol is easy.
Masculinity.
Yeah. Living into it is difficult, though.
Well, okay, so one of the reasons I wanted you on this one is, what's the connection, though? Because I don't understand the connection between
religion
Christians and guns.
All right.
Yeah,
So-
mainly Christianity.
Christianity.
There's
Mainly evangelical Christians and their
So
guns.
thank you first for saying evangelical Christianity. 'Cause there's a lot of ground to cover. Sorry, I took some notes. If we, I took anthropology when I was in college. And in anthropology, there's a branch of anthropology called this religious studies, or the study of religion. And the whole point of that is anthropology is the study of cultures, from ancient cultures to modern cultures. And religion has always been present. So it's the study of religion to figure out how did that affect the culture? How did the culture affect the religion? That kind of thing. In anthropology, there is absolutely no concern about whether a religion is correct. They don't care. They care about how that affected a culture, right? But in that study, Christianity is an umbrella term. So you can't group, like, it's an umbrella term that covers thousands of separate religions. So to say Christianity as a whole is really disingenuous. So it is evangelicals. So evangelicals have this take on the Bible where they take it as literal, that every word of the Bible crossed the mouth of God. And some guy was just sitting there dictating it all for God. And that's where you get the Bible, right? Which is completely hogwash. And they focus on, like, the book of Daniel is apocalyptic prophecy, book of Revelation, apocalyptic prophecy. They focus on those. And they're taught, as they're focusing on those, that since you're part of this group, you are loved by God and you're saved and you're going to go to heaven. Everybody outside of this group, Satan's got his talons in them, and there are demons around every corner, and every shadow's got a demon. If you fart wrong, you maybe have a demon and stuff like that. So this is generally speaking. So don't think I'm talking about everybody, but so there's this idea that there is evil all around you, and you're part on this island surrounded by a sea of evil, and you have to save people from this evil. And the only way to do that is through different weapons, right? So there's, the weapon of faith. My faith keeps me from Satan. But then there's also physical, because evil promotes itself in the physical realm, right? So they think that gun is going to they'll be able to defend themselves from the evil of society that is out there. Now, as we get into Waco, when we want to talk about that, the government, in a lot of these people's minds, is the biggest evil that there is, because the government promotes societal change. Actually, societal change promotes the government as it is, but that's another conversation altogether. But the government is the face of that societal change, so the government must be evil as well. So we have to be able to defend ourselves against this government when the evil tyrants that they are come after us and our guns.
I have never heard it broken down so good as Ben just described it. I mean, that makes perfect sense now.
Yeah, and there's a lot more to it than that. 'Cause there's a lot of fear, and these sort of religions, they feed on that loneliness. Everybody at some point in their life feels like, man, I don't really feel like I belong to something. I don't feel like I belong to a group. I'm all by myself. I feel lonely. I kind of feel empty inside. And most of us will say, go to college or join a club, or, we'll find something around the society that will fulfill those needs for social interaction. Those churches, though, that do that sort of feed off of that loneliness. We're the only ones that can fill your void. And our understanding of God is the only thing that can fill your void. So you need to belong to us. And so then you get involved with that does kind of fill that void of, social interaction. And you're like, oh, this is real. This is right. They must be right about a lot of other things. And almost in a cult-like way, they manipulate you into being more and more a part of that group and being more and more fearful of the other world around. You belong to us, so you're good, but all those other people, they're evil. They're going to get you.
But if they're so well, I guess it sort of makes sense because Trump was an outsider. But why would they hold being, that word of God? Would you allow that next to Jesus, Trump is their savior?
Befuddles me as well. I don't, because he was promoted. You have televangelists like, who's that guy down in Texas? I don't pay attention to televangelists.
Is it Jerry Falwell?
Yeah, well, him, Osteen?
Joel Osteen.
Joel?
Yeah.
These guys promoted him because he represented tax breaks for the rich, and we all know those guys are super rich. And they wanted to get tax breaks.
Don't they already not pay taxes if it's all through the religion?
Okay, so that's actually a really good point that needs to be made, that churches actually still pay taxes. We pay property taxes. We don't pay income tax.
Okay.
So since we're a nonprofit, there's no real way for us to know how much income we're going to have. And all the income that we have is donated by other people.
Right.
Because we still have to pay bills like the electricity and all that stuff.
Right.
So we don't have income tax, but we still have property tax. We still have all those other taxes outside of income tax. Mm-hmm. Okay. I still pay taxes. I owe a lot of money in taxes because the church doesn't take taxes out of my paycheck, but I still owe those taxes.
Okay.
So I have to figure out a way to pay those taxes. So you're paying me for this, right?
Wait, so the church pays you. The church doesn't have to pay income tax to the, I guess, I don't know if business is the right terminology. But you have to pay income tax on the money that you receive from the church?
It's kind of it's really complicated, and I'm not an expert at the law, but the diocese, so that our church belongs to a greater diocese or district, which is part of a greater church, right? So we pay the diocese X amount of money out of the money that's donated to us. And then the diocese pays me out of all of that. And, all the priests that are also in small parishes like that. But yeah, I still have to pay income tax on that. So but the diocese doesn't take that out to pay it for me. I have to pay that on my own.
Like an independent contractor.
Yes. Yeah, something like that. And that's technically what I am. So, I mean, the church is still, pastors still are supposed to pay taxes, but if you're uber rich,
the Joels,
you have all sorts of loopholes and things like that to get around it. I don't have that luxury.
Right. So
I don't know if I would take that luxury even if I had it.
So yeah, so couldn't the uber rich donate to their churches and then get that as a tax write-off, even though the church doesn't have to pay
I think they do.
tax?
They donate it to
they do
themselves, and then they have that tax write-off, and then they. And it's just there's so many loopholes. Like these uber rich guys, that are really terrible representations of the church. They wanted to get even further tax breaks. I knew Trump would bring that around, so they promoted Trump, and now all of their congregants who are going poor, supporting this one guy's addiction to money, are like, oh, well, we belong to this, and the leader of this told us this is who we got to back, so we have to back that.
Well, and that makes sense too, because I've never thought of that. How poor people will donate to their church when they hand out the collection plate every week, even though they don't have enough food for the week. Also, will donate to Trump's legal fund.
He's supposed to be this genius billionaire, right?
I know. Why does he need poor people's money? He's such a great.
Because he can grift it out of them. He can get it out of him. Why wouldn't he?
I know.
God, I think this is we're finally connecting the dots on this episode.
We've scratched the surface. There's a lot to it, and here's they have this. There are two things that these pastors do. They fill the people with fear, like we talked about. Satan's in every shadow. The devil's out there to get his claws into you, and they tell them, well, Trump is God's chosen.
It's going to solve all
so
your
ignore
problems.
all the things that he's done that are just scumbag things. He's going to solve all. He's going to wipe Satan away from America, because America is blessed by God. It's where God loves everything. But where was I going with that? I had a thought. Damn it. But they they tell them that, and then what they're doing is, when somebody does say, well, how come this guy is such, he's such a butthead, he's such a gross dude. The guy is just a scuzzy, gross dude. Well, they tell them, if we support this guy, then maybe that will bring about the end of the world. That will bring about the apocalypse. Maybe he is the Antichrist. So if we support him, that'll force God's hand to bring about the apocalypse as is written in the Bible. And then we can watch all those people that we don't like, the LGBTQ people, African American people, Jewish people, anybody who's not lily white and Northern European, we can watch all of them go to hell, and we can be in heaven forever. And we can watch the people we don't like or understand burn. So there's two things that they're telling these people that is part of that mentality and part of what they've had pounded into their heads, and they just really kind of don't know that they have a choice. They follow along with it because that's what they're being told to follow along with.
And really, the Bible has nothing that could really be interpreted as anti-LGBTQ.
The only thing, and this is hilarious, you guys are going to love this. So there is that book, that bit of Leviticus, that talks about if a man lies with another man, it's an abomination to God. But if you read the book of Leviticus, if you eat bacon, it's an abomination to God. If you eat shellfish, it's an abomination to God. You're wearing a cotton polyester t-shirt. That's an abomination to God. You should only wear one type of fabric to make God happy. So those are all ignored. All those abominations are God's over those. But this one, God is not over. If you turn 2 pages or 3 pages in the book of Leviticus, there's a bit where it says, if you break one of these rules, you break all of these rules. So if you eat bacon,
So
you
they've
might as
broken
well
all
be-
the rules anyways.
Right. But
'Cause-
they're just trusting that nobody's going to read that far ahead. All these people that carry their Bibles around and bang their Bibles up, they don't read the Bible.
Right.
They don't read it. Because you read it, you would be like, wow, we are really screwed. If you're eating bacon, you might as well just be gay, because it's the same abomination to the same God.
Right.
But people aren't looking at that. They're only looking at this one little bit. And that's really the only thing in the Bible that has anything to do with that. And Leviticus, we need to clear the air, was only written for people who worked in the temple or the priests. That wasn't general law for everybody in Israel or Judah.
So that's not like the rule book for everyone.
That was as part of the purity code for priests and people who worked in the temple.
Really?
Levites. That's why it's called Leviticus. It's for the Levites.
Oh, wow.
Like Deuteronomy was kind of the general law for everybody. But Leviticus is really only the purity code for people who needed to be pure to give sacrifices and enter into the temple.
So how come this isn't taught in like Bible school?
Well, you imagine how much control I would not have over you if I told you that.
Right.
And think about that. If I told you really what the Bible said, I would have no control over you. I don't want control over you. Like we said before, you're a little messed up, and I don't want that responsibility, man. Mm-hmm. But that's what these guys want. A lot of these religions that fall under the Christian umbrella, they want absolute control of their people.
They want to be like David Koresh. Like
they want to say, I said this, so you have to follow it.
Right.
And frankly, as a priest, I can kind of see how that might make life easier. Because I have a whole bunch of people who I encourage to follow God, to figure out what God wants for them and to follow that. But I can't tell them what to do. I can't tell them what to believe. I would never even dream of that. I can't figure out what I believe half the time. But these guys want control, because if I can control you, I've got your money. I've got every resource that you have at my disposal.
I have your vote.
Yeah. So it's a matter of control. If I tell you to read you must read the Bible, you're probably not going to do it. Right? Just because I don't really.
Pretty long.
It's long, and the letters are small.
I don't understand it.
The font, the language. But if I say to you, okay, well, I know you're not going to read the Bible, so I'm going to tell you what the Bible says, and this is what the Bible means, then I have control over you. If I can tell you what to do sexually, if I can tell you, if I can say, Michael, I think I don't think that you are, but if I say, I think that you're kind of in the closet, and that's a horrible sin, and you're going to be damned to hell for that, and suddenly I have control over everything. If I can control your penis, I have control over every aspect of your life. If I can control your vagina, I have control over every aspect of your life. I have your money, I have your vote, I have your support, I have your backing, everything. That's what this is about. It's about absolute control, which is where we're going to go with cults. That's what defines a cult, is absolute control. The cult leader is absolutely the living word of God. The cult leader has absolute control over everybody in the cult. If you want to join the cult, you absolutely give every bit of everything you own to the cult, including your own body. When we look at David Koresh was the only one who could have sex in that compound. Regardless of whether you and I were married, David Koresh was the one having sex with you.
He took the wives away from the husband.
And this is absolute control.
And they went along with it. I was like,
because it was absolute control.
So this was like 30th anniversary this week of Waco on it, and that's kind of why we got on this subject. Now, David Koresh, was he like power hungry, or was he just plain crazy?
Yes.
I would say a bit of both.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Both. Like you can tell from those shows. You can tell from the documentaries and then even the dramatized show.
If you can get news footage or like the video footage that survived the fire, He was nuts.
And there's still people who consider themselves Branch Davidians.
Well, Branch Davidians were bigger than just that. That was a bigger religion. Well, it wasn't huge, but it was a bigger thing than just in Waco, Texas.
Oh, I thought it was just.
Country. It was started
was just.
Yeah, it was started like 40 years before that.
Oh, okay.
And I think it was started in California. And it was never meant to be a cult. It was like a very kind of strict religion with strict understandings of the Bible. But it was never meant to be like that. He just took that. I don't know if he ever really believed in it. Koresh was an intelligent guy. He was like super smart. He'd memorized most of the Bible. Memorizing it and understanding it are two different things. But he knew how to manipulate those people with all those things we had just talked about, just their emptiness and their loneliness. And everybody sometimes feels lost in life. Like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. He knew how to manipulate that. And I think he was power hungry. He knew how to use that for his own power. He was horny. You can't say, I'm the only one that gets to have sex in this compound unless you're, damn, man. Maybe you need to see a doctor about that.
Right.
But, he was all of those things. And he knew how to manipulate those people. And he had his own little thing going on. And if it wasn't for Ruby Ridge, it probably never would have came to anything. It would have just petered out and died out. But when Ruby Ridge happened, they were really focused on these apocalyptic prophecies that the end of the world is coming. When Ruby Ridge happened, suddenly the government is facilitating this end of the world. We better be careful because Satan is rearing his head in the form of the FBI and Janet Reno and all these people. And so that's when things really ramped up and they started collecting all of these guns. Now, did David Koresh really believe all that? Or was that just a way to assert more control over his people? No one knows. I think that he didn't really believe in it. He just thought, well, now I can assert even more control with more fear over these people. And
I can take A1's
So you think he knew all along, like what he was going to do? Because I
don't think he ever wanted to die like that.
No, I think he wanted his own compound, his own culture, his own cult out there. And he didn't intend for what happened. And that's not to say that, because if you watch the documentary on Waco that's on Netflix, or if you watch the Waco TV show on Showtime, the government made some huge mistakes.
Well, yeah. I mean, most definitely they did. But I just mean, I think that he believed that he was, of a higher...
He believed his own bullshit.
I think he literally believed that.
He was the Messiah because he came back from Israel. And he had a vision of God, and God told him that he was the Messiah. He was the vehicle that would lead these people to the promised land.
Now, whether he initially believed that when he said it or not is questionable. But you can't go around saying, I am the Messiah without at some point starting to believe your own lie.
Right.
So he may have just said that, I had this vision of God, and everybody's like, oh, wow, cool. And so people are following you after that. But after a while, you keep saying that same lie. You're going to believe your own lie. And I think that might be what happened. He may have believed it from the get-go. Maybe he did have a weird dream and he thought.
Well, because the women too, so the women were talking about in part of that documentary where they're like, well, we all sat around hoping to be the one that got picked that night, because when you got picked and then you went and had sex with David Koresh, they're like, it was like you were having sex with God. You were having this intimate relationship. And I'm like, it blows my mind that any of them would believe that.
If you believe something so much, if you believe that Michael is God, they got promotion there, buddy. If you believe that Michael is God and you believe it deeply enough, then anything you do with Michael is going to be this miraculous event. It's just going to be this, there's going to be an aura. You're going to hear angels singing. He's going to have this halo around him, because your belief, if you believe it so deeply and so strongly, it will skew your perception. It will skew your psychology. And so if you say, wow, Michael is God, and you really believe that, and it's really part of your thing, it will start skewing your psychology. So even sitting down at this table with him is going to be this wholly religious experience, right? And so David Koresh was a dude. He was just a guy.
With a mullet.
Even, right? But in Texas, that's probably the sign of divinity. I don't know.
Right?
I had that mullet in like 1987.
I had it. I ain't gonna lie. I had it.
I guess, that makes perfect sense when it ties into the whole Trump thing, because Trump believes he's the Messiah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Well, I also think that David Koresh was a total narcissist too. So there's similarities between, because so is Trump. He's I think he's considered like a malignant narcissist, which David Koresh probably was too.
In the end, he got everybody killed.
Yeah, and there's a reason he did one of his first campaign rallies in Waco.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's equating himself with that. The evangelicals still look at Ruby Ridge and Waco, and to a point, the Oklahoma is one of those states somewhere, that bombing. As
he purposely did it on the anniversary of
King was the most famous resident, Tim McVeigh.
And all these, evangelicals still look at these moments as government overreach, the evil of the government. And then this guy, Timothy McVeigh, almost saintly because he fought against that government. Let's not worry about all those kids that he killed. Let's not worry about all those people that had nothing to do with anything that died because of that. But he stood up to the government, and he therefore is like this, almost a saint to a lot of these people.
Right. In reality, Tim McVeigh probably had a lot of PTSD from the war.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. He was messed up. He was messed up.
And then he comes back, and the show after Waco on Showtime, the second episode gets into how they raided a neo-Nazi place in Arkansas, I believe, and they found out they were sending out these newsletters to all the real quote-unquote patriots around the country, and it was kind of fueling this civil war is coming.
Yeah.
Tim McVeigh is one that, bit it. And what's the book that Tim McVeigh read?
The Turner Diaries.
Turner Diaries, yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, that guy was messed up.
Which was a book written about 30, 40 years before Waco that said about how this starts is you're going to bomb an FBI building.
Right. And he took... McVeigh basically looked at the Turner Diaries as his Bible. For the
most part, yeah.
Yeah. And that's where the whole thing, where the cult of that and the cult of Trump, where you're not a true patriot unless you follow Trump. And this is stuff that was being said 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. So this stuff's always been around, and now it's just kind of like amped up now. It's like on steroids.
Given fuel. Trump gives it fuel. Trump says it's okay. And you can't say to somebody, grab them by the vagina and then say, oh, no, we have to respect women's rights. You can't call Nazis after, a Nazi ran over 3 people at a rally. You can't say that person, he's a really good guy, he just made a mistake, without giving fuel to these people that have always kind of been on the fringe. And you give them that fuel, you give them acceptance. And then you get a whole bunch of other people who are like, well, I kind of, I'm a white guy. Maybe he's right. Maybe, people, Mexicans are stealing our jobs that I don't want to do to begin with. So he put fuel on the fire. He stoked the flames. And now we have a whole bunch of people that I think honestly are just kind of caught up in it. They got caught up in the rallies. They got caught up in the noise of it all. And now they're just in it and they're not really too sure why.
Yeah, and then you have, people who are outside the cult, but just because you're a Republican and they're too afraid to speak out against it because you don't want to piss off the cult leader, and you certainly don't want to vote Democrat, so they go along with it.
Yeah. All your family, all your friends are Republicans.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to be the I want to hang out with my friends. I can't. If I vote Democrat, they're going to make fun of me. They're going to call me woke. I want to be asleep. So there's so many different things, but it really does come down to, am I going to be a part of my group? So to be a part of my group, I kind of need to follow along with the group.
Right. Like I always equate it to being from Boston. I was a New England Patriots fan. And
no one's perfect.
Yeah. Well, there's been certain allegations that the Patriots cheated,
only Tom Brady, right?
No, well, because there was a whole Spygate thing with
Deflategate.
Deflategate.
Yeah. But Tom Brady was at the core of all that. We all know that.
But just say a simple football game, and there's a blatant pass interference call on 4th down, and your team gets the ball back. Even though you recognize that there's a pass interference call, and you're like, yeah, that's pass interference, you really don't care because your team's going to win. Mm-hmm. It's almost the same thing.
Oh, very much. It's a big group thing. Yeah. You can't think outside of the group, because thinking individually is going to separate you from the group. If you're at a game in New England and all the New England Patriots fans are, they're bemoaning a bad call, and you stand up and start cheering, suddenly you're outside of the group and you don't belong anymore. And that's scary. Yeah. That's terrifying. Even if nobody physically does anything to you, now you're ostracized from the group and you're kind of cast out on your own. What do you do on your own? So that's what groupthink is that I'm going to maintain my place in the group, even if I have to do things I don't necessarily really like or want to do, because I don't want to be outside of the group. I don't want to be all by myself.
Right. Scary shit. Scary shit.
But and the idea is, we've trained ourselves that we have to have somebody around all the time. We have to talk to somebody at all times. Having a cell phone, and you're connected to everybody all the time. I have to be constantly connected. And people are more and more kind of afraid just to spend time alone, to spend time by themselves. One of the greatest things I love to do is just walk out there at Monolith Gardens by myself and just, who the heck am I? Why am I, why do I think this? Why am I feeling this about this? And really have that internal catharsis of, what am I doing with my life? Why am I thinking what I'm thinking? Is this correct for me or is this wrong for me?
Right. I don't really mind being by myself at times.
Oh, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I used to live in Virginia Beach, and before work, what I would do is I would go down to the beach. I would walk along the beach by myself before anyone was there. You just go out there, sunrise, watch dolphins. It was the best therapy ever.
Oh, yeah.
This is just you, nature, your head, and you come out feeling good from it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same way with our work culture. Why do people always, they post like they're proud of it on Facebook? I've worked 16 hours today. I'm grinding. That's not. But in doing that, you don't have any time to think about who you are and where you are. If you're constantly focused on working 24 hours a day, you can be easily led. I can control you in what you think, because you're going to be too tired to think about who you are and what you believe and what is right and wrong for you. So the culture we've developed is a culture of people who are afraid to be alone. All they want to do is produce. I have to produce all the time. And that equates, and for somehow, I don't get how, that equates to patriotism. That equates to, I'm so patriotic, I work 16 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Because you're contributing capitalism.
Yeah, for the most part. But you're killing yourself for it. I work in hospice. I always have to tell a hospice story whenever I speak. My church is so much fun. But working in hospice, I went to this patient, and this guy was 66, 67 years old, had, I think it was prostate cancer. He had just retired 2 years ago. He had spent his entire life working 2 jobs. He had a career and another job on top of it. His wife had a job, and they had a ton of money saved up. They were going to travel the entire world after they retired. He retired, and he got this diagnosis of cancer. It's prostate cancer. You don't come back from that. All of his money is down the tube. He's like, why? Why'd this happen? There's no promises, man. Some get cold, some get sick. There's no promises. But that grind culture teaches you have to grind. Then towards the end, after you retire, you can do whatever you want. You can't. You can't. You're too tired. You're too old. You've worn yourself out. Enjoy the life that you have now. Because the life that you have now, if you enjoy it, if you live your life in a positive way, enjoying it and helping other people, your life is going to be longer, one, because it's actually healthier for you to do that. And at the end of your life, you're not going to say, well, I didn't get to. Why didn't I get to? Why didn't I take that chance to go on that trip or whatever? Live now. Don't worry about capitalism. Don't worry about the grind. Don't worry about that. Because if you live now, if you really live now, you're going to see so many neat things in the world that you cannot be. You cannot even worry about the word woke. You're just going to realize, wow, this world is really, really big and complex and it's beautiful.
Right. And I think that's why snow travels so much because, just
I
see
love
new
traveling.
things.
Yeah. I like going and seeing how people live in different places.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But once you can't hate other cultures if you're experiencing that other culture.
Right.
Because you realize, wow, this is really, really awesome. And so the whole society, the whole thing we've set up is you need to work 16 hours a day and all you're going to have time to do is come home and go to sleep. So yeah, you're going to hate other cultures because you look at France where they take 2-hour lunch breaks and you get 2 months off per year for vacation. I hate those people. I hate that culture. You're going to look at all these other cultures with hatred because they're not patriotic like we are. But no, they're living their lives. They're living the life the way you're supposed to live your life. And that's to experience the life that you live.
But when in most cases, if you're sitting, I'll use an example, say at like a U2 show, and U2, usually people fly in from all over the world to see a U2 show. Then you're seeing somebody next to somebody from France. You're not talking about politics. You're just talking about seeing this band. You're not really talking about culture. You're not talking about religion. But you said, wow, I just met this really cool person from France. And I think that's the way it is with most places. Like you can walk downtown and set a table, and if you don't bring up politics or religion, you can have great conversations with people.
The last concert I went to was the AC/DC show at the MGM a few years ago. And we had our own little culture right there in that part of the MGM stadium. And it was like, hey, man, can you watch me? Sure thing, man. I'll watch your drink, go to the bathroom. I got your girlfriend too. She'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And we just had this little culture where everybody was just cool to be around everybody because you had that one tie that bound, that music or food if you go to the bar or drink, a beer. That stuff binds us together. And if we can sit and talk to people at a show, I'm as white as they come. If I can sit next to an African-American guy at a show, and it's like, dude, this is awesome. And we can both enjoy it. That's a bond. And suddenly now I have to rethink, what was I thinking about Africa? I'm from Indiana, the most racist place in the world. Was that really how the world is, the way I was brought up? Because this dude and I were just having this great time and he was cool. Or, if I go to where there's Muslims and they're having a fun time with something that I like, dude, you guys are pretty awesome. When we experience other cultures, we cease to hate other cultures, except for Canadians.
That's it. Yeah, I was in Canada once.
Let's not dog on Canadians too much.
And this was a YouTube show.
I like Canadians.
This was a YouTube show. And after the YouTube show, I go check into a hotel, and it was such like my French. I forget. I studied it in school, but it was like je ne sais quoi or whatever. And like, are you checking in French? And I'm like, I don't speak French. And he really did that. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's American here, and that snotty, French person.
Just smile and say we.
But then I was much younger, and there was this, just this really attractive girl. She comes up to me and she's just like speaking French, Hey, you too, Sean? I'm just like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't speak French. She goes, oh. Shrugs her shoulder and walks away. I was just like,
Oh, no.
Oh, what was that?
It could have been the language of love for you, buddy.
But in Indiana, though, I mean, that is an interesting place. I had to spend some time there last summer. And you were from near where Jim Jones?
His house was, the church that he grew up in was turned into a house. And when I was a little kid, in middle school, nobody lived there. And so it was in that town, that was the haunted house. If you could go up to it and hold your hand on the door for 5 seconds, and, then the spirit of Jim Jones would come out and grab your arm and pull you through the door and stuff. That was the legend. And so that was the dare, if you could go up and do that. And the friends that I hung out with, we were all kind of goofballs, but none of us could do it because we knew that the spirit of Jim Jones was going to come through that door and get us. So that was our middle school dare to do that. But yeah, we could ask teachers if, like, we had teachers in high school that went to school at Jim Jones. And so if we didn't want to, hear the lesson that day, hey, tell us a story about Jim Jones. And they'd talk about, he was just a weird kid from the get-go. So, but yeah, he was a big part of that
just
culture.
Not a psycho.
Oh, he was nuts. Yeah, he was really nuts.
Huh. I wonder why Indiana breeds weird people. Mike Pence.
Michael Jackson.
Wait, Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson's from Indiana?
Yeah, from Gary, Indiana, yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Oh. So is Axl Rose.
Oh, yeah. Well, he is, but...
He's strange. He's a strange guy.
And the KKK.
Yeah.
Was Indiana. Everybody blames the South for that one.
Mm-mm. That's all Indiana.
God, see, everybody seemed so nice when I was there, but I didn't really...
Because you're white.
Yeah.
The town I lived in was... Because the KKK really was like 30 miles away. So I lived in this tiny little town, and there was maybe 1,600 people, including all the farmers, in the periphery of the town. African Americans would drive up. They would go to Fort Wayne, which is directly north of us from Richmond. They would drive an extra 20, 40 miles around because they knew if they stopped there, they would get their asses handed to them. Wow. One guy stopped at the payphone for about 5 seconds, and he was in the hospital for about a month.
Oh, my God.
Because he was dared to be black. And it was, it took it was not till I moved to Indianapolis that I really actually interacted with an African-American person. And I was like, oh my God, I was so wrong all of my childhood. Like, this is not, they told me lies.
So you were like kind of around where John Mellencamp was from, right? Kind of.
Yeah, area. We drove, that was down in Seymour, Indiana, which is on past Bloomington in the southern part of the state. But I actually dated a girl in Bloomington. It was a student at IU, and we go down through Seymour all the time. So we pass his house a lot and stuff. It's a beautiful house. Lovely house.
Yeah. I went to, because I'm not too far from French Lick. So I went to go see Larry Bird's high school.
Yeah.
And they have like a bust of him out there, which was cool, being from Boston. See my Larry Bird.
A story about Larry Bird in Boston. But
I was in Boston for a while. It's my favorite city. I love Boston. Yeah. And I was in this little pub. I was the only one. It's a tiny little pub. It's near Boston College. And I was the only one in this pub. So I'm just, drinking the beers. I just got back from Salem. So I was just kind of processing that. And these two huge Boston guys come in. Like, they are just huge guys. And I'm clearly just got off of some physical labor job or something. And I'm like, all right, dude, just be quiet. And they will leave you alone. If you don't bug them, they won't bug you. Kind of like bees. Right. And so I'm sitting there, and the one guy sits on this side, the other guy sat on this side, and my heart sank. Damn it. And the lady, the bartender, says, hey, do you want another one? I said, yeah. And this one guy looks at me, he goes, you're not from here, are you? I'm like, shit. I said, no, I'm not. He goes, where are you from? I said, no, they're going to kill me. I said, I'm from Indiana. So for the next 2 hours, they talked about Larry Bird, and I smiled and nodded and drank for free. So I was like, yeah, man, this is great. But yeah, I don't know anything about basketball. I'm like the one guy from Indiana that doesn't know anything about basketball.
The only time I saw Larry Bird in person was at a John Mellencamp show at Boston Garden.
Really?
Yeah.
That's weird. That's a weird confluence.
Cool.
So I think on that note, we'll just wrap this one up here. It's a good episode. Thank you for
Thank you very much for asking me. Yeah.
Yeah.
You really enlightened us about a lot.
Especially the Bible.
Yeah.
before we wrap it up, just understand that the Bible is not a book that you can just open up and read it like you would Stephen King's It or something. There is so much study to understand why people wrote what they wrote, the context of it, especially the Jewish scripture. Some of it was written by priestly people, some by rabbis, some by just poets, right? And you have to understand the context of why they were writing it. What are they saying from their perspective? And how does that fit in with the rest of it? The Bible is written by a whole bunch of people who had experiences with the divine. And they had this Jewish understanding of what the divine was or is. And so they were trying to explain what that experience with the divine was within the context of that religion, right? So not one of them, no one guy writing that Bible thought, one day in 4,000 years, everybody in the world is going to kowtow to this writing. And especially in the New Testament, when you look at the Christian scriptures, again, the Gospels were trying to write, this is what my experience with this person whom I believe is divine was. And when you read it from that perspective of people just trying to express what their experiences are and understand that in trying to express, the divine is an abstract thing. So if you think you've had an experience with an abstract thing, you're going to use metaphor, you're going to use allegory, you're going to use all these different tricks. And so you have to study how they wrote in those days, why they wrote that way, who would have written this and what, before you can't just read it like a novel and say, now I understand what the Bible says. There's so much more to it. It becomes so much more of a beautiful book when you understand all these things together and you can read, this passage of just mourning and sorrow. You think, man, this guy is really writing about this experience with the divine through the eyes of deep loss. And, it becomes more beautiful and it becomes more...
Not as much a rule book.
It's not a rule book. It's a tangible thing that, okay, my experiences with the divine are okay because this guy's experiences with the divine are way different than this guy's experiences with the divine. So my experiences with the divine are good. They're okay, even though they're different than those two or this over here or whatever. As long as I'm experiencing the divine in my life, that's all that really matters. And that experience of the divine, there's no rule that says this is how you can only experience God or however you view that, the universe, whatever. I mean, I don't care what you call it. I don't think God cares what you call it. If God created the entire universe, think about how huge the universe is. Humanity on Earth, before the sun swallows Earth in its dying breaths, will only ever see 10% of the entire universe. And that's in 6 billion years. We will only ever see 10% of the entire. How big is the universe? And if God made all that, how big is God? Do you think God really, you think that thing that could create the entire universe, whether it's an actual physical, a personality God or just energy of creation, whatever, do you think that creative force really cares who you fall in love with? Do you think that creative force is really going to be upset that, you showed real true love to that other person, but sorry, your anatomy was wrong? Is that really what God's going to do? Is God really that concerned about, your skin color is different than everybody else's? You're out. You don't speak the same language that those guys do. You cross an imaginary line without correct papers. You think that God is really that bound up with that? Or do you think that God that is so huge and so creative is just saying, dude, just be kind to each other? Just be kind. Every religion on earth, their core rule is be kind to each other. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. That's the core rule of so many different religions. And that is all that the divine wants. And so our experience with the divine, all of if you look at the Quran, if you look at the Bible, the Jewish scripture, that's what their experiences are, is how to love and be kind and to be gracious to each other. And that's it. So, I know you guys have your own belief systems or whatever, but, when you talk about Christianity, don't lump us all into that one lump thing. There's many of us that are just trying to do what is right and how we understand God. So
I think from at least my perspective, and I'm sure Snow is the same, is that we overall don't do that. Is that there's just a few bad apples that kind of just ruin the whole thing. Because on this podcast, one thing that we talk about is mental health is a big thing. And whatever faith that you have that gets you through the day, whatever makes you happy is a good thing.
If it fulfills that part of you that needs fulfilling, man, you do it. Knock yourself out with it, man. Go to town. As long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. You know, somebody asked me one time, they were with them when that metaphysical shop opened up down there on Beale Street. They have all sorts of tarot cards and other things like that if you're interested in those things. They said, well, what do you think about that? You're a priest. I said, I don't care. If that brings somebody closer to who they really are and gives them a catharsis of this is who I am and this is what it means to be me within the, you know, within the whole world, good, great. As long as they're not hurting anybody else, I don't care, because that's the only evil in the world is hurting somebody else, and to be cruel purposefully is that evil. And I can't imagine that God is going to get so bound up that this is my name, you have to call me that, to little ants crawling around a speck of dust off in some corner of this massive universe. I don't think God cares what we call him. I don't think God cares that we don't quite understand him right, you know, or her right, or whatever God is. I think God just says, you know, I exist, acknowledge that I exist, and be good to each other. That's what Jesus said. Love God, love your neighbor. I mean,
right.
How hard is that?
I mean, the one thing that we always say when we have talked religion on this would be Jesus would be progressive.
If Jesus came back right now, he'd be shot. He would be shot dead. They would kill him again. He'd be a brown Jewish person going around saying woke stuff. So they just shoot him right then and there. So he just wouldn't last. But I mean, that's nobody would listen to him anymore. Except maybe 12 other guys. Change the world all over again.
You know, and I think this has been a really interesting conversation, you know, and Snow hasn't really said anything this episode.
I've been listening.
She has. She's contributed a lot, and the things she has said have been very, very good for the conversation.
I'm just kind of picking on her.
I know. I don't have to talk so much all the time.
Yeah.
That's a lie.
I could chill out.
well,
whatever.
Again, thank you. And,
thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Are we going to see you at Pride again this year?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll be wearing my cassock. I'll have my long black robe on and my little zucchetta hat, and I'll be representing, because that's what God said to do. You know, if we're going to represent God, and if I'm going to sit here and spout off about love your neighbor and all that stuff, then I'm going to love my neighbor while representing a religion. And that's just, I can't do anything less than that. So I'll be there. Damn straight.
Great. Appreciate
Cool.
it. All right. We will see you then in a few weeks.
All righty. Thank you, guys.
All
And
right.
until then, next week.
Next week.
All right.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.